Welcome to the Low Demand Parenting Podcast, where we drop the pressure, find the joy, and thrive, even when it feels like life is stuck on level 12 hard. I'm Amanda Diekman, author, autistic adult, and mom of 3. I'm not here as an expert, but a fellow traveler. Together, we're learning how to live more gently, authentically, and vibrantly in this wild parenting life. We have had quite a month here in the Diekman household. We moved houses after a decade and completed 2 concurrent renovation projects and squeezed in a week of vacation. It was a time. We are happily settled finally in a new place, and I'm sure I'll have stories to tell about how we low demanded the move process. But it's back to school time in the Northern Hemisphere. And whether your family is a strict full-time school-going crew or whether you're well off the beaten path of schooling, we all feel the school rhythms in some way in our family systems. Some of our really sensitive kids can feel that it's school time, even if they have no connection to school whatsoever. And some of you might be seeing dysregulation and trauma symptoms and all kinds of things popping up around this time of year. In today's podcast, I am interviewing Esther Jones, who is a longtime unschooler. She is one of the organizers and founders of the Unschooling Summit and author of the book, The Parent's Handbook to Unschooling Yourself. Before I jump into my conversation with Esther, this fall has some really fun things happening on the low demand landscape, and I wanted to tell you about a couple of them. The first one is that next week enrollment is starting for the low demand course, which is the 8-week, vibrant, intensive, transformative learning community where we have live calls. We have incredible pre-recorded modules that you can do in your own time, and it's built to be done with a partner. So whether that's your parenting partner or your close friend or a caregiver who is important to your family, you get 2 separate logins for each purchase. There'll be more information next week about how to join specifically. I just wanted to flag what a powerful experience this has been for so many of my students who share with me that it was the first time that they really felt seen in a parenting course where their own needs and fears are actually a part of the equation and where we truly embrace a zero shame, zero judgment, and zero prescriptions approach to parenting, which means I'm not telling you what to do and no one else in the course is telling you what to do, but we are supporting one another with a framework that helps us make aligned and powerful decisions for our flourishing. I'd love to have you. We'll talk about it more next week. The second thing is just a upcoming announcement. My second book is coming out in October. It's almost time for me to show you the cover and start talking about what pre-orders look like. But for right now, I just want you to know it's coming and to know the topic. It is the Parent's Handbook for Kids in Burnout. It is all about understanding childhood burnout and everything that you can do as a parent to better support their healing through this incredibly painful portal. It's coming. I'm so excited. Obviously, more to come. Let's get into my conversation with Esther. I can't wait for you all to meet her and experience her goodness. Welcome to the Low Demand Parenting Podcast, Esther. This feels really special. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Amanda. Lovely being here.
Your specialty, your world is the unschooling world, which has a big overlap with the low demand parenting world. But I just want to acknowledge for everybody who's listening who has a kid who's in school, whether it's a public school, a private school, a co-op, whether you're home educating, unschooling, or whatever you do with school, this conversation is for you. Because we are really speaking to the whole piece of the puzzle that is our work as the parents in deeply understanding ourselves and understanding how our kids learn and move through the world. So you have shared that unschooling isn't just about education, it's about the whole way that we relate to our kids, the relationship that we build together. So could you tell us a little bit about your parenting journey, about how
Sure.
that has unfolded?
Yeah. So first, I'd like to recognize that we came to unschooling like many families, particularly many families of PDA children come to it, which is like a kind of a falling into it and going, oh no, what do we do now? And then realizing that, this is it. So I have three children. They're 19, 17, and 13. My 19-year-old is my PDA. And we came to unschooling, I'm going to say about 10 years ago, although many years from the beginning, I had understood that this was not a mainstream journey for us. I could see that from very early on. So we'd explored alternative schools. My two eldest had gone quite late to school, the late as possible. And so they were at an alternative, very alternative school. And we lived in Spain at the time. But even that, the stress of every day going to this place of being with children that my eldest in particularly didn't necessarily want to be with, it was just, we felt we weren't really getting anywhere. So we took them out and decided to just find somewhere else. So we spent a year with this idea that we'd find that, the perfect school. I'm sure lots of listeners have looked for the perfect school. Didn't find the perfect school, strangely enough. We were like, okay, we could move city. We could, it felt so important to find the place, this place where everything would be just right. And of course, we didn't find it. But in that year, I was so challenged by so many things, like what we should be doing, what they should be doing. Then I was seeing what they were doing, and some of it was just so amazing. And what we ended
Mm.
up doing was, it was around the time that the business I was running, I left that and we moved from the little town we were in to the hills nearby. And we lived there for 2 years. And at this point, we realized there was no school, and we just had a 2 year, really remarkable, just deschooling time. It was probably about 2 years into our journey that I actually heard the word unschooling and thought, oh, it's got a name. This is good. I was Pam Larikia. I always say thank you to Pam whenever I come across Pam because she was the first person, I think. And then I got to John Holt, and then I started reading. Oh, now I understand. There's some science behind this. This really makes sense. So that's our
Mm.
journey. And yeah, now they're all much older, and it's been remarkable watching them. It really has. It's been the most satisfying journey imaginable. It hasn't always been easy, but it's been always deeply fulfilling. Seeing them come alive for who they are and be who they are. Yeah. So that's a little nutshell around that.
I love it. So you mentioned deschooling. That's
Yeah.
something that may be a new word for people if you're not already in the homeschooling world or not already in the unschooling world. You might not know what that means. I also want to say that I've read and you've written a beautiful book called The Parent's Guide to Unschooling Yourself. And in many ways, that's the deschooling book, like a
Hmm.
lifelong deschooling book, I'd say. And where it overlaps with low demand is that there's so much that we end up having to rethink around what good parents do in the low demand journey. We've got all of these scripts, and part of the deschooling process, as I understand it, is unlearning those scripts, figuring out where did they come from, and then what does it look like to actively dismantle them to rebuild
Mm.
something new and better. And I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that process in your
Yeah.
journey. What have you had to dismantle in that, in
Mm.
your own, maybe in those 2 years, especially when you were first starting out?
Mm. Yeah, many scripts. One was certainly around, I have to get this right. I have to make sure that this is all right all the time. I was quite a perfectionist. I had a little bit of a history in my life of giving and burning out and never quite knowing
Mm.
how to just sit back and take care of myself and of fixing things. I was a fixer. And
Mhm.
so it was extremely hard for me to trust. Trust is a big word in this, that my children knew how to learn, could learn. I wanted to jump in there all the time and just make sure things were going how they should go. And so for me, one of the biggest pieces was sitting back,
Mm.
not completely getting out of the way, but understanding what it is to hold space for a child rather than direct them. So a lot of this is about, I want to create a space within my child which my child can really thrive. We're all intrinsically motivated to learn. Every child knows how to learn. We don't have to teach them that. So, how can I hold a space within which they can do that? And we're taught that good parents don't hold space, they make things happen. And so, understanding that my primary job really was to create a space that felt good, that felt safe, that felt loving, that felt that they could explore things, that felt non-judgmental, that felt like they weren't being criticized or directed.
Let's say a parent is listening and they're newer on their journey where you were, where you always
Mm,
assumed that you would send your kid to school and they would learn
yeah,
because they would be taught by a teacher.
right.
And then now they're home with you because they literally can't access school.
Yeah,
And you're trying to rethink what you've always been taught about how kids learn.
yeah,
What do you want them to know is true from your seasoned experience? You know, if you
yeah,
could go back and pull yourself
yeah,
aside and be like, hey, it's not what you
yeah,
thought, it's this. How would you describe it?
yeah. I think that the most important thing is to keep observing your child. First of all, I'd like to say there are a couple of things to remember always about learning. So, first of all, we all think that learning is school. We've
Mhm.
been socially conditioned. If someone talks about learning, we typically think of school. But we're born to learn. It's what we do. And if you watch a baby, a toddler, we learn. We're intrinsically motivated to learn. We can't not learn. It's just, it's our makeup, right? So that's the first thing, to keep appreciating that, and that it's an internal journey. Learning is an exploration. Learning is curiosity. Learning is finding things out, and it comes from inside. We can put content in a child's head. We can force them to, because we can scare them, because otherwise you won't pass an exam, whatever. But that's not real learning. So real learning is this exploratory journey. It also requires a specific state of mind. And so we can only learn, we're only open to being curious when we are calm, relaxed, and safe. If we feel threatened in any way whatsoever, or tense or anxious, we're not in a learning frame of mind. And I think this is always forgotten in schools, where children are often forced in, they're uncomfortable, they're anxious, they might be fearful. It's not an exploratory state of mind. It's not a frame of mind that wants to know more and explore more. So that's the first thing. And I think there is a big piece of work for every parent to do around what is learning and what do I
Mhm.
want from my child? And I think I would go back always to that why. Here we are at home. What do I really want from my child? I would
Right.
absolutely encourage people to find the voices that talk in different ways about learning. Peter Gray is wonderful. John Holt, all those people, and listen to other people's experiences and really just drill down into it and see if you can read around it and understand learning in a different way. And it will
Mhm.
be much easier.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you. I'll add you to that list.
Yes.
Also read Esther Jones.
Thank you, Amanda. Appreciate that.
It's just a section of your book, but it really stood out to me as being so integral in the specific piece that we talk about a lot in the low demand community, which is I always say that we're demand factories, and that factory is set in motion by a lot of our anxiety and
Right.
our sense of this good parent code of what we're
Yeah.
supposed to do. That's what turns the factory on, and then we just spew out all these demands. So just saying drop the demands. I'm spewing demands, dropping, spewing, dropping, spewing, dropping. We have to turn the factory, we have to slow down production or turn it off.
Mm,
And and key to doing that is engaging with needs, not solutions.
yeah.
Shifting our mindset toward what does my kid need? What do I need? What is the
Right.
need? Because there's always a way to meet the need. When we're in the solution world, there's not always a way that, that's where you said it's just like that's where we get
Absolutely.
into butting heads and
Yeah.
battles. And so I find this piece to be so crucial. And I just wondered if you could, first of all, just teach us what is this piece about needs versus solutions, and
Yeah.
why was it so important to the unschooling journey that you wanted to include it in your book?
Yeah, for me, it's certainly, this was very much my PDA who was instructive for me in this, in that in my head, it might be very clear what could happen next or what should happen next. And I would get this resistance. And so I really learned through him, particularly in trying to understand his resistance. I could always tell once that resistance had set in, we weren't going to go anywhere. And I could see that I had to unravel back to connection. And so this unraveling always took us back to needs. It took me back to listening. And he was really good at pointing out when I wasn't listening. And he would say, "No, you're not understanding me. You're not understanding why I'm saying no." And I could often feel that resistance in myself, thinking, no, this is a really good idea that I had, right? I know what needs to happen. And I would go, okay, I'm going to listen. And I had to really focus on going, okay, maybe I'm not right. And
Mm.
listening. And then whenever we got to a place where he was expressing that, ah, right, now I get it. And we were back to that connection. And once we connect again, anything can happen and things flow again. I, it became clearer to me that resistance piece comes often when we have some kind of preconceived idea in our head of how things should look. And it's that should again. Whenever we are making an assumption or knowing how we think it should look, we're probably in a solution place and we're not really listening. And so that was one piece of it. The other piece of it was understanding my needs.
Mm.
And that came a little bit later, I have to say, when I could see that actually sometimes what needed to happen was me step away and take care of me. That everything else was actually fine. This was a me thing. And what I needed was to stand in the garden and take a few breaths. I needed to have a cup of tea. I needed to put some music really loud in my head. I needed to scream into a pillow, whatever the need was. I could see, oh, this is a me thing. And again, it's coming back to I'm trying to get my child to meet my need to be a good parent, whatever. I got to go and get rid of that and then come back to them. And what was always amazing to me, Amanda, was that when you get rid of that and you come back to that place of needs where we're actually feeling like we're all free to express that, things flow. And they
Mm.
may not flow how you thought they would. And it may to another family, to someone else that might not look how it should look. But there's something very honest about it and authentic about it. And by doing this, we're really showing our children that their needs matter and that they can voice their needs in the future, that they can advocate for their needs, that their needs are important. If they're in a situation they feel their needs aren't being met, they can think about that. They can talk to someone. Like all of these things, for me, this again, it's all about how do we navigate life and not, yeah, and doing that with them.
Mm.
So I think it's a really important piece in it. And I think with the PDA, it's essential to keep coming back to that connection. Can we understand each other here? If we can, because we can understand each other, because these are
Mm.
human needs, aren't they? And we all know human needs. We know what they are. We know tiredness and we know overwhelm. Something really helpful to me at one point, probably when they were much younger, I would find that if more than one child needed me at the same time, I could feel my nervous system go, ah,
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah.
it just, I felt a sensory overload. And for a while, that made me feel like I wasn't doing well enough, and I would get kind of cross with myself and get edgy. And then I realized I can just say, whoa, I feel really overwhelmed. And I started to say, hey guys, I just feel really overwhelmed right now. And they were like, oh yeah, okay, don't worry, I can come back later. Or do you want a cup of tea? I'm like, oh wow, everyone's really kind to me. When I say this, I get kindness. And then they were able to go, oh, I just feel really overwhelmed. And someone go, oh, turn down television. And it was just so interesting to me. So how actually when we are able to say that, they understand each other too.
Mm. Yeah.
Because we get back to the being human, not who's right, who's wrong.
It's so different for you to say, I'm a little overwhelmed right now, than, hey, you need to go back to your room and tell me later. That
Right.
immediately generates this like bristly resistance. Oh,
Right.
we're in a fight. Whereas you being like, oh, I have a human need and I'm a little
Right.
overwhelmed.
And there's no
Um,
blame. And I take 100% responsibility for how I feel right now.
yes.
Like
And there's
this,
so
the thing.
possibilities to
Right.
how it could be solved. If you say
Yeah.
you go to your room because
Right.
I can't listen to you want blah, 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 then that's like you said, it's like you're leading with the solution. And so then you're fighting about the solution.
Yeah.
When you
Definitely.
start with it's too many needs at once, whoo, I'm overwhelmed. Then it's like you're still in that creative space where I don't know how we're going to solve this.
Absolutely. My 19-year-old, maybe about a year ago, and I can't remember what happened. I was definitely feeling overwhelmed by something. And I remember he came and he said, because he'd seen me so many times go, okay, I'm gonna take a walk or whatever. Came and said, I think, why don't we have a walk? Let's go and walk up the hill. Come on, I'll get your coat. And he marched out the house by my 18-year-old for a walk because he said, that's always good for you. I went, oh. And it was just really precious. And I thought, oh, that's lovely. And they're all quite good now, I think, at going, okay, I need some time by myself, or I need this. And again, it's just that, yeah, living by example. And yeah, there's no blame in it. There's no blame and there's no shame.
Nope. And there's no control either. You're not
Right.
trying to change them. You're just
No,
admitting, I've got a big need
right.
and I deserve for my needs to be met just like you do.
Exactly. Exactly. I think that the tools of being mindful and being more observant of ourselves and understanding ourselves and giving ourselves that self-compassion make our lives so much easier. And this is what I do, is just keep taking your own temperature. How am I now? How am I now? How am I now? And noticing, oh, I'm slightly on edge. Need something. And keep just finding that space where you're okay. And I think that you just, because you're never boiling over with them, it just becomes this space of exploration and discussion that can happen. And so we are showing up as our full, whole, complex selves, but we are also used to not dumping things on them that are not theirs. So we're also used to taking responsibility. And I think that there's something very present about unschooling, in my opinion. It's this kind of mindfulness in action. You're always coming back to the present moment. You're never in the shoulds.
Yeah.
For people who feel very uneasy about the term unschooling or stepping away completely, they're 19, 17, and 13 now. And my 17-year-old he re-engaged with the education system at 16 with not a worry in the world. And my 19-year-old at the age of 17, he went, my PDA did a local college course for 2 years, which he's just finished. And it's been remarkable to me how easily and how wisely they went back into a system. And with their eyes open, they can see the things that don't make sense. They can see the things that do make sense. And they were not, although they both felt a desire to do as well as they could, at no point did it feel that their self-worth was dependent on it. And they've had many other interests beyond that. So I just wanted to just add that to it. There's a sense of that they really are whole people. They're not dependent on the outside approval or meeting someone else's goals for them. They very
Mm.
much feel in charge of their own journeys.
Wow.
Um,
That self-directed thing is intrinsic to them. So they
mm.
carry it with them, whatever system they're engaging with.
Yeah, they
What are you
feel in
saying?
charge of their own lives. They feel
Mhm.
like it's up to them to, and that's very rewarding to see that. Yeah.
That's tremendous. That does give
Mm,
me a really lovely perspective too for how they the formation that you're creating in your home with all the pieces that you named, even naming needs and self-advocacy and being
mm,
creative and curious. I've witnessed this in a young teenager going to college here in the United States who was just really open about his disabilities, his needs for support in that
mm,
process, and that the solutions that they came up with wouldn't it's not coming from the that future forecasting, that fearful place. It's very
no,
present, very
mm,
mindful, very aware. I'm going to struggle in this way, or this thing is often difficult for me. And then how are we going to solve that together
right.
as a family? And then again, resources that the college might have to offer, and just how different that is than perhaps a traditionally schooled kid who hasn't learned those skills to
Right.
bring.
Absolutely. I think there's also something about that being able to make your own choices as to whether you go to this social group or do be with these people as they enter their teens. I feel like they have an ability to discern places that feel good, places that feel safe, people that feel safe, They're used to discerning, and they're used to saying no if that's not comfortable. And I think that's a quality to really encourage in children and young adults. I find it hard to understand why we would not want them to have that autonomy. It keeps them safe. So that connection to this is good for me, this works for me, yes. And sometimes they'll get it wrong, and of course they will. But that knowledge that that they don't have to be seeking out approval, because they are used to tapping in to that connection with themselves. They're used to doing it from a very early age.
I love that. What a great place to end. The power of
Mm.
the no, that when
Yeah,
they're young, for whatever reason, we want to get them to stop saying
right,
no and start saying, okay, sure, whatever you think. And then there's a time where that becomes really dangerous. We don't want them
right.
to say, okay, sure, whatever you think. We need them to
Mm.
say no. And that you can't flip that switch. It has to happen gradually with
Right.
so much compassion and space to learn and practice and get it wrong.
Yeah, we have to be willing to hear the no as well. And I would encourage any parent who you want to get that no, and doesn't make life hard, doesn't it? It makes life much harder, that no. But just keep remembering their advocate. Where's the no coming from? Keep curious about the no. Is it a no from fear? Is it a no from self-advocating? What's the no made of, rather than getting stuck on the no? Again, just that curiosity around it all.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really feel from your work this idea of make nothing wrong.
Yeah, nothing's wrong. Absolutely.
There's nothing wrong
There's
here,
nothing
and I don't
wrong.
need to make anything wrong here.
It's all a process.
Yeah.
One
Yeah.
long process.
And that's what
Exactly.
learning is, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just, ooh, wow. Huh. I wonder what I can learn from what is the no telling me? What is my trigger telling me? What is the resistance telling me?
exactly.
That's learning for all
Yeah.
of us. So, Rich, thank you for coming on and
Thank you,
sharing
Amanda.
this. I know that your book is available in all the places. So if you're like, oh, I need this conversation, but 10 times more,
Yeah, yeah,
then go
in fact,
find the book.
absolutely. Go find the book. So my website, esther-jones.com. There you can find the links to the book, also to my podcast, my various pieces of writing over the years. And yeah, and then I also do deschooling courses, which are a lot of fun and a real exploration. They're just an exploration. And so anybody that's embarking on that journey who wants to know about more of that, it's all on my website. And always feel free to get in touch if you've got any questions whatsoever. I'd love to hear from people.
Oh, that's so good to know. Yeah,
Hmm.
and I want to highlight your podcast, especially if you're starting out or don't have a lot of community. I really
Mm,
think that listening to podcasts is a way on a day when that need is I'm lonely or I'm
absolutely.
scared, I
Yeah.
can't see the path forward. Pop on your conversation and just feel immersed in two people, everyone you interview is so lovely and rich and different.
Aren't they?
And
I
all the
know.
journeys are so different.
They're so
And
different.
yeah, it does feel like having a really great cup of tea with
Yeah.
maybe pick somebody
Yeah.
who's a little further along in the journey and just feel mentored
Yeah.
by
Feel
them.
reassured. Lots of
Yeah.
people have walked this path, lots and lots, and may feel lonely, but there are a lot of people out there. And I would
Yes.
absolutely encourage you to go find those people.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And if you
Yeah.
can't find them in your own community, then
Mm,
find them virtually because, yeah,
absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
right there for you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Lovely chatting with you.
If this podcast is speaking to your soul, you can subscribe through wherever you get your own podcasts. Even better, if you feel the nudge, head on over to Apple Podcasts in particular and leave us a review. It's such a helpful way for new people to also get to experience what this podcast wants to bring into their lives. I'm Amanda. Remember, it takes great strength to let things go. I'll see you next week.